Welcome back to another exciting video of Top Movie Recap. Today's review is about a 2011 American science fiction action film called In Time. A voiceover describes the state of the world in 2169, a place where time has become currency for the people. People are genetically engineered to stop aging on their 25th birthday, when a 1-year countdown on their forearm begins, and when it reaches to 0, the person times out and he dies instantly. Time has thus become the universal currency, and it can be transferred directly between people or stored in the shape of time capsules. Several major areas called time zones exist. Dayton is the poorest, a manufacturing ghetto where people rarely have over 24 hours on their clocks, whereas in New Greenwich, people have enough time to be essentially immortal. Well, Salas is a young man who is living in Dayton, a poor ghetto in the southwest USA. He lives day by day, making just enough to pass each day, sharing time currency with his perpetually youthful mother, Rachel Salas. She is now 50 years old but has 2 days' work in the garment district. She gives Will 30 minutes for lunch. They will celebrate when she gets back. Everyone has a luminous green digital clock on their arms counting down. Will is generous and easily gives 5 minutes to a young beggar girl called Maya. One day, on the way to work, he buys a coffee. The price has just gone up. Walking to work, they can see many dead bodies in the streets. Will works in a metal stamping plant where he is making shiny cassettes. After his shift, he notices he is paid less. Quotas have gone up. After that, Will meets his friend Boral at a bar. There they notice a man treating everyone to drinks and drawing attention to his arm, which shows him as having over 116 years. Will realize that the man did not belong to the ghetto and he was likely to draw attention to himself. Sure enough, the Minutemen, a criminal gang, shows up armed and ready to forcibly take the man's time. The gang leader, 40s, is actually aged 75. Boral and the rest of the bar scatter, but Will interferes and he helps the man escape. The two flee from the Minutemen and then find an old building to hide in. The man introduces himself as Henry Hamilton and explains Will of the time as currency system. He also added that it's been established as a means of population control after the advances made in anti-aging processes, but as people were still surviving. He tells that inflation and lower wages were also designed to keep the population in control. This currency system also meant that the rich people could live much longer than normal and essentially become immortal, while the poor people died. Henry, however, is tired of living for so long. Angry, Will tells him that the rich people did not deserve their time. He tells Henry he doesn't want his time. Unwilling to abandon the depressed man, Will offers to stay with the man until the morning. At dawn, Henry passes his time to a sleeping Will. Next morning, Will wakes alone with the 116 years of time and a message telling him not to waste this opportunity. Through a window, Will sees Henry seated on the edge of the bridge, and then he realizes the man plans to commit suicide. He runs out to stop him, but just misses him because Henry's time runs out and he falls into the stormwater channel. Will notices that street cameras recording him and he runs back home. After that, Will meets Boral with his family and shows him his new lifetime. He thanks Boral for being his friend for so long. Will gives him a decade. Boral warns him that staying in Dayton with that much time was going to get him killed, but Will wants to take his mom to New Greenwich. Rachel pays off a 2-day loan at a Wise ATM machine. She tries to board a bus to get home, but the fare has gone up to 2 hours and she has only 90 minutes left. In a panic, she has to run. Will is waiting at the bus stop and then realizes that something is wrong and he runs toward Rachel. They meet somewhere in between, but too late, the mother dying in the son's arms. Later, Will calls a private stretch Lincoln limo to pick him up and take him to a richer time zone. There he passes through 4 toll booths with progressive fares into a gleaming, modern but sparsely populated city center, New Greenwich. He has cleaned himself up to dine at a nice restaurant. A young lady across the room takes notice. The waitress tells him to slow down to blend in with the rich and suggests a casino nearby. Meanwhile, Henry's body is discovered by authority, much like the police. Raymond Leon notices the street camera's footage where he surprises at seeing Will's photo. His colleagues ask him if he knew the suspect and whether or not he had a criminal record. Raymond corrects them, telling them he did not know the current Will Salas, but he did know the senior Will Salas. Timekeepers are mobilized to locate Will Salas. At the casino, Will meets Philip Wise, one of the richest men in the world. At a high-stakes poker game, Will goes all in and comes out as victor. He is now with over 1,000 years. Philip and his beautiful daughter are impressed. Philip invites Will to his mansion for another party, and partially to see Sylvia again. Will agrees. He purchases a Jaguar E-Type and drives to the Wise mansion on the coast. There, Philip reintroduces him to Sylvia, his wife Michelle, and mother-in-law, all 3 of whom look the same age due to their wealthy background. These 3 women are followed by guards all the time, but Will convinces Sylvia to let loose and have fun because he is feeling oppressed by her father and his men. Sylvia agrees and they both go skinny dipping in the ocean. There, Sylvia admits wishing that she could often do something wild and crazy. Philippe had always been restricted by his family members, though, and sure enough, he soon comes looking for her, Sylvia, and will manage to dress and make themselves presentable again when the timekeepers appear and threaten Will. Raymond arbitrarily takes back the 1,000 years from Will as they don't believe his story. Raymond hints he knew Will's father and leaves. Will fights off the other timekeepers and takes Sylvia hostage, and then escaping out the mansion. Raymond commits himself to chasing them, even taking personal risks that other timekeepers avoided. After a car chase, Will throw Raymond off their trail and escapes back to the country with Sylvia, who pleads to be let go. As soon as they return to Dayton, the car is wrecked in a trap set by the Minutemen. While Will and Sylvia remain unconscious, then the Minutemen discover that Will only has a little time left and was thus worth nothing. Sylvia, however, had about a decade, and so they take hers instead. The men are forced to run before they could take all of her time. Sylvia panics because she has never been reduced to having so little time. Will tells her that she should not be worried, as regular people live day by day. Instead, he brings her to find Borrell, hoping that he could give them some time. To his grief, he learns that Borrell had drunk himself to death with his riches, leaving his wife and newborn alone. After that, Will manages to buy them more time by pawning off Sylvia's diamond earrings, but knows it isn't enough for them. He calls Philippe and demands a 1,000-year payment for Sylvia's return, to be sent to the Time Welfare Office. Raymond listens to the call and warns Will not to follow his father's path. Will learns that his father's crime was not stealing time, but something much more serious. Raymond deduces where Will was hiding and assures Wise he would bring his daughter back safely. At Will's apartment, he explains his father was an armed fighter with a trick to win time contests. He demonstrates that you let the other win at first, they get overconfident and distracted just as the last few seconds run down, then the arm can be flipped and the flow reversed. The next day, the payment is unpaid. Will says to Sylvia that it was likely because her father was prevented by the timekeepers, but Sylvia took it as proof that her father didn't care about her. Nevertheless, Will allows let her to go and tells her to make a call to her family. Since they were in the ghetto after all, he gives her a gun so that she can protect herself. They kiss, and after that Sylvia makes her call. Raymond appears and nearly shoots Will but panics. Sylvia shoots Raymond instead, and Will corners Raymond and attempts to take his time. Raymond, however, has also very little time, for it is timekeeper practice to carry only a little time to avoid being targets. Since Will was trying to take Raymond's car, he transfers 4 hours of his own time to him before hijacking the black Challenger car and leaves him alone in the ghetto. Sylvia realizes that using a police car was essentially asking for attention. They decide to rob another limo and passenger, a blonde woman dressed like a hooker. After that, they learn that they had both been placed on a wanted poster with a reward of 10 years to anyone who will help in their arrest. Meanwhile, Philippe studies a large map of the world with colored lights and numbers. He also tries to assure his business partners that his daughter would not crash the current economic system. An injured Raymond manages to escape the ghetto, verbally harassed the whole time, and meets with Philippe. Wise attempts to bribe Raymond into rescuing his daughter, but Raymond tells him that due to Sylvia's actions, an arrest warrant will be placed for her as well. If Philippe interfered and tried to save his daughter, Raymond will see him arrested as well. Will trains Sylvia on how to use a handgun. She offers to help him get time. Will and Sylvia drive an armored car through a Wise bank window and scoop up many time cassettes. They invite the onlookers to grab what they can also. The large status board shows the imbalance. This endears them to most people in the ghetto. Wise watches the news report of the robbery as his wife chides him for suffocating them. In a motel, the two get closer, then sense something is up and just manage to escape Ray and his squad. Ray alone takes after them over rooftops in a running gun battle, refusing to let them go. They manage to bribe a bus driver and escape. At a seedy hotel, they rent the whole building for privacy. 40s and his gang roust civilians until one admits where he saw the two runaways. In the hotel room, the young couple describes how each went through the change at age 25 when the green numbers begin counting down. 40s arrives and explains it is not just the rich and the timekeepers oppressing the normal citizens. The Minutemen are being allowed to do so as long as they did not start preying on the rich as well. 40s challenges Will to an armed fight to the death. As the two men lock arms together, Will's time runs down fast. Will uses his trick to reverse the flow, then manages to pull a gun from his boot, kills the henchman and times out 40s. Will is dismayed and figures it will take 1,000,000 years to change the system. Sylvia knows where they could find that time. Sylvia returns home, pretending to turn herself in, distracting her father and his multiple guards, so that Will could sneak up on him. Under gunpoint, they take Wise to his office and open a large vault where they find a single cassette with 1,000,000 years. Philippe tries to say it is always in an individual's interest to live forever, even at the cost of another's, but the two runaways are unconvinced. After locking Philippe in the office, the two again return to Dayton. While keeping the timekeepers distracted, they pass the 1 million cassette to Maya, the little girl. Raymond pursues Will and Sylvia to a remote area running toward Livingstone, the next town over, just as they all begin to run out of time. Will sees that Ray is a Dayton homeboy, an honest cop just doing his job. The timekeeper has forgot to get his per diem and dies in front of them as he times out. With only seconds to spare, Will notices the police car in the distance, runs and manages to transfer the timekeeper's per diem from the center console device to himself. He runs back to Sylvia and just manages to transfer some time, saving her life. The two of them only have enough for a day. The Daytons stop work and march toward New Greenwich. Watching the news, the timekeepers decide that their jobs are finished. With 100 years bounty on them, pulling up in front of a large institution, Will and Sylvia draw their guns to make their biggest heist. We hope you enjoyed our today's video. If you did like this video, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with the latest and interesting videos.